Jazz Shaw and Stephen Greenstreet. Wednesday, 4 p.m., Ralph Blumenthal. 5 p.m., Skinwalker Review and Friends. On Friday, journalist Daniel Otis from Vice News Magazine. Tuesday, 4 p.m. on the Singularity Lab, Down the Wormhole. Thursday at 4 p.m., Space Robots. Come aboard and get weird on the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of the Singularity Lab, your one-stop shop for reliable news and commentary on breaking stories in science, in technology, transhumanism, and UAP discoveries. I am your co-host, Luis Jimenez. Joining me a little later in a moment is Mr. Michael Mataluni and his lovely wife, Kristen. Today is going to be a fun day. We're going to be discussing Sean Cahill's appearance on Fox News regarding the 180-day UAP report. We'll be reviewing a new scientific study about wormholes, an insane new technology called time crystals. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And we also, let's see here. But before we, of course, bring all of these folks in, and we got Carl Vibe, we've got Jeremy McGowan in the house, and we've also got Rather Be Squidding, going to be stopping by talking about those time crystals, and we may even have Christina Gomez, so stay tuned. That's going to be a lot of fun. I see that we have 10 of you guys in here, which is really dope. Let's see what you guys are saying in the comment section here. So we've got Michael saying hello to Alien Girl. Alien Girl was here. I think I missed the comments, guys, because I came in a little later. So if your comments are above this, they just haven't loaded for me. We've got Anna Ero Ace Arena. Piercings, tattoos, shots, all basic things moving up to next Planon implant today. Ready for cyborg options already? Sync me to the Google. Golly already. Smart piercing tat interesting. You're interesting. Show ideas if you run out. Like 3 cyborgs and a mic or Zoltan. I like this person, whoever this person is. Anna Arco Ace Arena, you are hilarious. I dig it. Let's see here. So we've got Case for Infinity. Welcome to the show. Thank you. So nice to see you here. Synchronicity and synchro mysticism has been a huge reoccurring theme for me. Yeah, well, there are some synchro mystic things that happen today. Involving time crystals. It's just weird that Michael's talking about it, and someone also dropped a video on it. So I'm thinking that's what you're talking about. We've got Michael Mataluni. Another Michael Mataluni? Thanks, Anna. Or what, Michael, do you have 2 accounts? You dog, you sly dog. I think Michael Mataluni has 2 accounts. Interesting. All right. So let's see here. We've got happy hour started yet. Well, this is sort of the happy hour, indeed. All right, and we've also got Jeremy McGowan. We got John Russell. Hey, there's Alien Girl. How you doing, my lady? Moose 1911, Luis Sua, Mozart. You guys, thank you so much for being here. Angel Street. Alex Garcia, you guys are killing it. Don't forget to share this, like, subscribe, ring the bell for Michael so that way, we could get him to 1,000 subscribers and get him monetized so you guys can support this channel just as much as you guys are supporting mine. So with all of that, let's get this thing started.
What is up?
Hey, Michael, where's Kristen? There she is. What's shaking?
Kristen, I'm good, man. I'm excited today. Oh, you got that Red Bull. You're getting jacked up. I like it.
I got a little jacked up today, yeah. A little jacked up. It's not exactly my drink of choice. If I had my choice, I'd be drinking some Arizona peach iced tea, but I ran out. So I got to stick with the water and the Red Bull.
That is so unfortunate. Yeah, we've actually got a little Monster. Chris and I are kind of passing back and forth the Monster because it's been such an intense week already. It's only Tuesday.
Yeah, it's only Tuesday, dude. It's only Tuesday. We got a long way to go, my friend. By the way, yeah. I love that this is one of my favorite names in the chat, Alien Bokeh Face.
I know.
That's hilarious.
Did you know it's actually pronounced bouquet?
Bouquet, Alien Bokeh Face.
That's even better, right?
Yeah, it's even better. Yeah, that's even better. Bokeh Face. I love it. All right, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. I'm super excited to be here. It's great to have you here with us today. Kristen joins us on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Welcome, darling. I'm really excited because we've got one of my favorite topics in pretty much the entire world today, which is we're going to be talking about synchronicity, something that occurred to me after we were talking with Lou Elizondo last week. One of the things he brought up was the human brain and its potential quantum entanglement. And that just reminded me of this whole idea of synchronicity. And I thought it would just be a great topic to bring up because we're going to be talking about wormholes and some new breakthrough discoveries that we're seeing on the scientific front when it comes to our ability as human beings to literally create wormholes. Shit's getting wild out there. Welcome to the Singularity Lab, folks. We are excited that you're here. We've got a powerhouse show today. We're going to be discussing Sean Cahill's appearance on Fox News regarding the 180-day UAP report. And apparently, all of media has completely mistaken the idea that it's supposed to be due out today, June 1st, when it's actually supposed to be at the June 25th. But, when media says it's true, I guess it just comes true, yeah?
Well, I think it was more of they kept saying in the media that the report is due in June. It's due in June. It's due in June. It's due in June. So now it's June, and everybody's like, "Oh, where's the report?" And they didn't read that it said it's on or before June 25th. So it could come between now and June 25th, which I tweeted out earlier. I'm okay with because if the media doesn't read that part, they're going to be talking about UFOs for the next 25 days.
Hey, why not?
That's a good thing. I mean, yeah. Look, we're going to get into it, but I think, we'll get into it.
Yeah. So we're going to be going over Cahill's appearance on Fox News. We're going to watch that real quick, and we'll get some responses to it. We're going to be discussing new research into wormholes, and science may have figured out how to theoretically push us to the stars. We're going to be talking about time crystals. If you guys have ever heard of time crystals, I promise you this is not pseudoscience. This is real science. This is something that's actually been established and created, and Ratherby Squidding has been working on a video all week about this, and it's a great video, and we're going to send you over to that a little bit later, but he's going to be joining us to talk about time crystals. And then number 4, we're going to be talking about quantum entanglement and the potential for human connection through synchronicity. I'm stoked. I think Carl Vibe, who's one of our guests today on our panel, is also stoked to talk about this topic. Carl is a full-time content creator. He's recently launched his new show, Carl Vibe, on YouTube to investigate the mystical aspects of reality and consciousness. So I imagine this might be right up your alley, Carl?
Oh, I've been plunging down the rabbit hole of quantum physics and entanglement and superposition and all that, trying to make sense of some meditation experiences that I've had where I've kind of, in a deep meditative state, encountered sort of a doppelganger version of myself from that may either from the past or from the future or both, different things like that. So this idea of consciousness being in a superposition or quantum entangled with other dimensions of reality is really fascinating, and so I'm trying to get to the bottom of that from a mystical perspective.
Oh man, I love it! Jesus,
bringing
Of
the
course you are,
weirdness
Carl.
right out of the gate.
Of course you are. Of course
I don't
you are.
need drugs or anything. I always get accused of that. It's literally just transcendental, deep meditative states that I go. But yeah, very cool stuff.
Right on.
That's fantastic. Oh, so no psychedelics, only meditation for you then. That this is where you experience that state of consciousness.
I don't like to get it all confused. I want a clean slate when I go into it because I feel like there's a lot of weird trickster stuff that goes on in there. And so I don't like to muddy the waters when I'm getting real with it. Yeah.
Love it. All right. Our next guest for this first hour of the panel is Jeremy McGowan. You love him I love him. We love him here at the Singularity Lab. We haven't seen him in a hot minute, so I'm super stoked to have him. If you don't know Jeremy, he's a trained observer, investigator, and veteran of the United States Air Force. He built what Luis Elizondo called the world's first mobile UAP tracker, the Osiris Off-Road Scientific Investigative and Response Informatics System. Jeremy McGowan, how the hell are you?
That's a mouthful.
Yeah.
That is a mouthful. And Carl, I'm going to call you out right off the bat. I was in your backyard yesterday and the day before, and you didn't come see me.
I'm sorry. Oh, see, if you were at my house, you would have had a clear answer as to why.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. But I tell you what, spending the last 72, 48 hours, something like that in the backwoods of Utah, man, it was great to get out of Vegas.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so you brought the Osiris with you?
I did. I pulled the Osiris up. We went to a place called Tokerville Falls, which is off grid. If you do not have a Jeep, and even then, if you haven't modified your Jeep, you're not getting there. The Osiris was probably on 2 wheels more than it was on 4 wheels, because I accidentally took the wrong way in, the way that I went in, it was not pleasant.
You probably took the Nephi's twist trail the backwards way, which is definitely sketchy.
I had to do about 3 river crossings, and I was coming down places where I thought my winch was going to impact into the dirt at the bottom of it. It was,
I've done that,
but it was an amazing drive, and that was the most sketchy I have ever driven the Osiris.
Whoa, that sounds cool. When you get into rocky terrain like that, how are you worried about equipment banging around or things coming loose or?
Well, it's a 22-year-old vehicle. Things are loose by nature, and the only thing tight is my sphincter as it's taking a bite out of the seat.
Only McGowan gets a sphincter joke in the first 8 minutes of the show.
Yep. There you go.
So as a matter of fact, I spent the better part of today diagnosing some electrical problems that I've had because apparently I shook a wiring harness loose.
Yeah, that makes sense. I figured you'd probably be dealing with exactly stuff like that all the time after you bring it in.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right, so let's dig in here. So I want to get to Cahill's interview today. So I'm going to pull that up real quick, and then I just want to get your guys' responses to it and thoughts on it. Let's see, where's this guy? Here we go.
The Pentagon is going to present Congress with an unclassified report on recent UFO sightings as early as today. Our next guest was on board the USS Princeton off the Southern California coast in 2004 when he witnessed this tic-tac-shaped object flying through the air. Sean Cahill joins
that's
us
not
now.
the tic-tac.
That's the gimbal. That's the gimbal.
Yeah, that's what I was going to...
Yeah, go ahead and explain that real quick. Well, because I feel like we have to constantly
Always.
dissect what they do in the mainstream media to actually get the facts, and this is so frustrating. But go ahead, Luis.
I mean they take the story of David Fravor's Tic Tac and they call every single video the Tic Tac, except for the video that is actually the Tic Tac. It's insane to me that they still have not got. And this is Fox News. They've been reporting on it the longest. They should have this down by now. How are these not labeled correctly in the production booth? They should be able to pull up Tic Tac and then the Tic Tac video pops up. They should be able to say gimbal in the gimbal video. I think they just have every UFO video in there is labeled Tic Tac and they're like, yeah, that's it. Go for it. Run it. Just run it.
I secretly get a little thrill when they mess that up because I know that Luis is going to lose his mind on a live stream soon after, and it's almost worth it.
This is as bad as when commentators talk about guns and gun control. This is like the shoulder thingy that goes up. They have no idea what they're talking about.
Well, they're not organized behind the scenes. It's like they're playing telephone.
Well, this is why. But you know what? This is why cable news is dying, because they do stuff like this all the time on important things. Right. Not to say that this is not important. Obviously, it's important to us, but it's just this is exactly why nobody trusts cable news. They get facts wrong all the
All
time.
the time.
Yeah.
All the time, man. And it's like, yeah,
And it's
I mean,
not-
like,
they're reading the teleprompter, and then it's like when
Right.
they have to pull off the teleprompter and think for themselves. It's almost like there's a total disconnect going on there that you don't get on shows like this. You know, where
No, it's
actually
true.
Talking
out of
heads
our
like
own
this,
intelligence. Yeah.
talking heads like this are the best argument I've ever seen for AI avatars.
no, I mean,
That's
it's also the scariest reason to actually have AI avatars. Like, I mean, anyway, all right, we can continue.
Stuart Armstrong,
All right.
great to have you with us today. What are your expectations for this report, and what do you hope it will do in terms of shedding more light on this issue that some people say in the military are seen actually quite often?
He looks really serious. Like he's just look at that stoic. He looks
He's
Dude.
pissed about the gimbal video.
He's saying his internal monologue is exactly as mine was.
Oh
God,
no, that's my face when I'm trying not to have the upset face.
what? That's the gimbal. It's the gimbal. Oh! Hi, how you doing? Yeah, he's
Well, I'm
like,
keeping my expectations low, but I'm ready to pivot based on the information we're given. I expect the UAPTF to get what they ask for from the government. The question is how much cooperation the various aspects within our government are going to give to the task force.
Okay, what did you see years ago?
Well, in 2004, when I was stationed on board the Princeton, I was up on the bridge while we were coordinating the efforts to try to find out whether or not these tracks on radar were real or not. Once we had determined that they were real objects, we sortied some F-18s out there. And the night before they sortied, I had seen 5 to 7 objects up in the sky at approximately 45 degrees off the port bow at about 2,000 feet. All of them moved together towards the center of a circle in a counterclockwise fashion, and they all disappeared or blinked out. This seemed to correspond with the movements of the things that we were seeing on the radar as well.
Wow, 17 years ago. What were you thinking at the moment?
I thought that what I was seeing was exotic. I had never seen anything move like that in the sky, whether a meteor, an aircraft, or anything in the spectrum. I didn't know what I had seen. Once we had finished that, I had gotten on with the exercise and moved on.
When you look at it, back at it now, knowing what you know, what do you think the source could potentially be of this? What makes the most sense to you?
Well, it's going to surprise some people, but what makes the most sense doesn't seem to be any of our adversaries or near-peer technology. In 2004, what we witnessed there showed us all of what Luis Elizondo calls the 5 observables, which definitely indicate an exotic technology.
Why do you say your expectations are so low? Why would that be based on this report?
Why would that be based on this report?
What a lot of people don't understand is this isn't a brand new subject. This subject has been in and out of our government for the last 70 years and has been investigated by numerous portions of our government. It has never seemed to be a subject that anyone
and then they bring in the bouquet video. It's
wanted to talk
yeah.
about.
I mean, again, well, here's the thing about the bouquet video. I'm okay with it because we don't know one way or the other what it is. Nobody definitively knows what those are. And again, that bouquet video is the one that my mother shared. So,
Right.
you know, if it's the one that the masses are familiar with, it just as long as they're not calling this the Tic Tac. You know what I'm saying? That's when I get upset. You know, it's like, why are you doing that? But yeah, anyway.
And in the last few years since I've gotten involved, we've fought a stigma just to get this conversation out in the open.
You know, Harry Reid has even suggested that there are UFO parts in the hands of defense contractors. Do you think that's reasonable to assume or believe?
I think based on the people who've made those statements, that's a highly likely possibility.
Chief Cahill, we're going to stay in touch with you. Don't know when it's going to come out, but there's going to be a report. We do believe, well, we think it's going to be public, right? Or at least a portion of it, Chief. So, Sean, thank you very much for your time today.
I'm Steve Doocy.
whenever they're not reading directly up the teleprompter, it's like
Yeah.
the wheels fucking come off. It's horrifying.
It really does, dude. It really does. I mean, can we just go back to the last second of what he said there? Like, I mean, I just found that hilarious for me. I mean, listen to what he says.
We do believe, well, we think it's going to be public, right? Or at least a portion of it, Chief. So, Sean, thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, the point is fair. We don't know to what extent what is going to be released to the public versus what's going to be released to Congress, right? He just
we do know that there's going to be a public version of it, and then there's going to be a classified version of it, and then that classified version, if it gets approval, then it may be shown to the American people. But it's gotta go through that process. Right. But he's guessing there. I mean, whatever. I'm not gonna.
Well, and he's a news personality, so his job is to make you like him.
Yeah,
I suppose.
I don't.
McGowan.
Yeah. What does McGowan think?
Well, as far as what Sean said, I mean,
yeah. What Sean said, as well
as
what you think we're actually going to see from the port. Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as what Sean said, I don't disagree with him. I mean, he didn't say anything that none of us already don't know. He's talking to the lowest common denominator of the watchers of Fox News who are not familiar with this story. So what Sean said is accurate. What do I think is going to come out in the UAPTF report? I have been. That's a loaded question. I think it's going to be nothing for us. I have been told that this was supposed to be classified at the secret level, and instead, what the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence is going to receive is going to be classified at the top secret level. That, in and of itself, is highly significant. It does not mean that this is aliens, but it means that the level of information that the Senate Select Committee for Intelligence is receiving is a much higher sensitivity than originally thought, if the information that I was given is correct. That being said, I also think that also downgrades what we're going to be seeing in the unclassified version. Because if we were hoping for any morsels or tidbits that were going to come out in paragraph format in clear text on the unclassified side when it was going to be secret, I think those just vanished.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not news, though. Everybody's kind of known that we're not. First of all, it's not enough time to get a sufficient report together. It's just not.
But it is.
Well, in a transition period between presidents? I don't think it's as easy.
No, the administration has nothing to do with it, because this is the Joint Chiefs of Staff. This is the head of military departments. These people did not change. We lost a president and a vice president and got a president and a vice president. They have nothing. They don't even know. Though Harris and Biden, they don't know what the UAPTF is putting together, right?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
didn't Psaki say they were contributing to that report as well?
Who's contributing?
Psaki. Is it just Psaki? The
press secretary.
The press secretary. She said recently that they were also responsible for helping to contribute to getting this report out. Is that not accurate?
Oh, I'm sure that to getting the report out.
Right.
Dissemination.
Right.
Not collection and formatting and information gathering. I mean, there's going to be somebody that's going to go through this. There's going to be a final approval authority that is non-committee, and it's going to come down to one person with a black marker that says, nope, 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 nope. And that one person may or may not speak for the current administration. The current administration may or may not even know who that one person is.
Yeah, I think the amount that's going to be redacted off of the documents in the report that we see is going to be huge. I think it's going to be mostly blacked out, and people are just going to be left with a million questions and just a few morsels. Yeah.
Well, we're not even going to get a blacked out version. We're going to get a separate page or paragraph or pages that is a summary of what the classified section is supposed to contain. But it's going to be, I really, really do not feel that there's going to be anything in this report that those of us that have been watching this story since it occurred, those of us that are inside of this conversation, I don't think there's going to be any new information. The government may well admit that in writing that UAPs are unknown. And I think that's probably going to be the extent of what's coming out in the version that we're going to see.
Yeah, I think you're right. This is a great question here, and this kind of links to part of our topic that we're going to be hitting on when it comes to synchronicity here in a little bit. But I wanted to ask you this from Anonymous Rex. In your experience, Jeremy, in your experience in research, have you come across claims of UAP witnesses having any mental link or ongoing dreams associated with their experience?
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
That's it. Yes.
No, I've had conversations with folks that whether they're precognitive, whether they're postcognitive, whether they're I don't know if the terminology is correct, but past lives or past experiences, or perhaps this is what we're going to get into later in the show. But it's a causality that is in part of the entanglement theory, where another doppelganger version of themselves, like Carl was talking about, had an experience and it's bleeding over into dreams. But I've talked to people who have claimed to have been on board spacecraft but when they wake up, they're like, for 20 or 30 seconds, it's very difficult for them to figure out which reality that they're currently in.
Right. And that speaks to our guest tomorrow on the Unidentified Celebrity Review, Ralph Blumenthal, who wrote a book about John Mack, who was the Harvard psychiatrist who sat down with an extraordinary amount of these experiencers and ended up, because he wasn't a believer at the end of his experience, but he was like, something is going on here that is far beyond anything that we can understand. And it's I think a lot of people put off the experiencer phenomenon. They put off abductions, and they put that into kind of the pseudoscience bucket, and then some people who are more serious about the potential technology of UAPs take that more seriously, and some people just put the whole thing in the rubbish bucket. But I don't think we can do that. I don't think we can put any of this stuff in the rubbish bucket.
We can't. And this whole abduction phenomena, it has been given a terrible disservice. And because I'm going to say it point blank and simple, people lie. And there are a tremendous amount of people who have invented stories of abductions, and they have popularized these stories, and they're so fanatic about it. They're so detailed about their lies that they're putting together, that the events that have actually happened, that weren't AFOSI screwing with people down in South America, but were actually abduction issues.
AFOSI? What is
Air
that?
Force Office of Richard Doty.
Oh, right.
When he's talking about that, he was actually out there tricking people into believing that abductions were a thing. Right. But I think the stories, the people that are gravitating for attention and seeking the pats on the back and the condolences and the experiencer, it's almost like Munchausen syndrome for UFO abductions, right? Those people have clouded this topic to the point where when it actually happens, everybody blows them off.
Right.
It gets really confused as well with people come with their own, not to get into religion, but their preconceived beliefs and ideas about the topic being supernatural in a religious context. Because really, the concept of the abduction happening, if you read the book of Ezekiel that was kind of edited out of the Bible that you find in the Dead Sea Scrolls and these other documents, you have the same thing when he was supposedly abducted by the wheels within the wheels and carried up. First of all, he was taking a nap with his head on a meteorite facing to the north. So there's electromagnetic geological properties going on to the conscious perceptions. But then when he goes up and supposedly meets God, who is Metatron in the story, or called Metatron, it's a version of himself. He's revealed that this God sitting on the throne is literally a doppelganger of himself. And it's the same in religious story after religious story going clear into the past. And it's very unusual how that all connects now with this whole idea of quantum entanglement that we're going to get into, and being in a superposition and the subconscious connection with reality and all that.
Well, why don't we just dive into that topic right now? Because I think it's so, on the tip of all of our tongues here. So, for those of you who don't know what synchronicity is, it was actually introduced by Carl Jung. And what I didn't realize in doing a lot of this research was he was actually reaching out to quantum physicists, trying to understand the relationship between the psychological idea of meaningful coincidences, and if there was potentially a physical component to this. And so obviously with Newtonian physics, when you think of gravity and all these different things, there's nothing that relates the physical world to the psychological world. But when you look at quantum mechanics, the potential for there to be a relationship between the mental world and the physical world, everything changes dramatically, and you start to see the opportunity for those things to interact together, which is quite bizarre.
And we like it to be in separate boxes, but the mental consciousness phenomenon that exists within physical reality as a product or as a part of that physical reality that we're in. And you can't really separate the two. Your conscious witness and perspective of reality is really all you get in the end, is your perceiving of it. And we try to say, well, that's physical and over there, but all that's happening still in the end within the consciousness, and even all of perceived physical reality has to be interpreted through the filter of the subconscious mind and understood that way anyway. So you can't really separate it into separate boxes, but when we try to study it with scientific measures and things and externalize it, it gets really spooky anyways. It doesn't matter. Even if you try to dice it up physically, it takes you back to this subquantum, very strange reality and how it's all connected in a very unusual way.
Well, and that's why you've got like guys like Michio Kaku and these folks who want to create a theory of everything and be able to combine Newtonian physics and quantum physics and create and be like, okay, we've got the answers, but everyone keeps failing. I mean, Einstein tried to create a unified field theory and he failed miserably, and we still can't explain gravity.
Yeah, he got in. Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
I was just going to say that I don't think that anybody who studies, realities and entanglement and things like that, I don't think that they should study it until they put on an Oculus and they spend a good 12 hours in virtual reality. Because when you are existing in the reality that we know right now, and you're also operating inside of another virtual reality, it does something to your ability to understand what merging realities are like. And I had an experience this morning. I got my daughter an Oculus Quest, Oculus Quest 2.
You've been boxing it up on
Man, I'm trying to get into shape, or trying to change my round shape into a different shape. So I'm playing this boxing game, right? And I'm done, and I am wiped out. So I still have this thing on. I'm lying down on the floor, panting, covered in sweat, and the weirdest thing happened to me. I felt a breath on my face, and it freaked me out because in my visual field, there was nothing there. My dog had come over and was basically breathing right on my face, and it scared the crap out of me because I couldn't see anything there, right?
Right.
So being able to be existing in two separate realities at the exact same time and having that experience to know what it feels like, I think that if you're studying quantum entanglement and alternate realities, you need to actually experience it in the only way that we can repeatedly experience it now to get a baseline.
Right, a baseline to develop a hypothesis, right? And
a baseline to understand what it feels like.
In a way, we're all kind of interdimensional beings walking around, and we don't realize it or take it for granted anyways, because we've all had the experience when you're driving in your car and then you're daydreaming and you get to the destination and you're like, I don't even remember taking the turns how I got there.
100%.
Because just like putting on virtual reality goggles, we can slip into these altered states of consciousness where we're daydreaming or visualizing something even within our own minds, and our autonomy is still carrying out the task of sweeping the kitchen or doing the dishes. And we have these layers like an onion to what we perceive reality as, from what we're thinking about and visualizing, constantly augmented and overlaid with this analytical overlay, and sometimes very distracting from actually where you're at here and now in the real physical world.
Right.
Real quick, Michael, do you want to reset the room? Just remind everybody what we're talking about.
Absolutely, and we can answer Alien Girl's question here as well. So
because that reminded me to reset the room.
Yes, exactly. So if you're looking for, we actually have a Discord server. So if you guys are interested in chatting with us behind the scenes in between shows, even though we do a show every day, 5 days a week, but they're a good 20 hours a day. We're not with you guys, so maybe you want to hang out with us.
That's scary. Like, we want to open up 20 more hours for people to get into my life. All right, fine, go for it.
We got a link tree below. Either click on Luis's link tree or my link tree below, and there's a link to Discord, and you can come check that out. We got a bunch of channels in there. We got an amazing group of people in there chatting all the time about the subjects that we talk about on these shows. So make sure you click that link, check it out. Right below me, if you're watching this Hollywood Squares conversation, right below me, you've got Jeremy McGowan. He's a trained observer, investigator, and veteran of the United States Air Force. He built what Luis Elizondo called the world's first mobile UAP tracker, the Osiris Off-Road Scientific Investigation and Response Informatics System.
It sounds like an 80s cartoon show.
Autobots roll out.
Like Autobots roll out. Osiris bots roll out.
Roll out.
We need a whole fleet of them. I'm
whole
disappointed
fleet.
there's only one at this point.
Yeah, it's a Humvee that transforms into a UFO tracking machine. Built in 20 years from the future. He's come back in time. Anyway.
Cool.
Yeah.
We got Carl Vibe also beneath us. He's a full-time content creator. He recently launched his new show on Carl Vibe on YouTube to investigate the mystical aspects of reality and consciousness, the things that we're talking about today. And on this top row, you've got your hosts here, Kristen, Luis, and Michael. So welcome, everyone. If you're just joining us, settle in. We've got another hour and a half here with you. We've got an amazing show for you. We've already covered Sean Cahill and the UAP report that should be coming out within the next 25 days or so. So if you missed that part, make sure you watch it at the end. Go back to the beginning. Right now we're talking about synchronicity and what the relationship between quantum physics, entanglement, and the realities of us being connected. And one of the interesting things about this is, we were talking about Einstein a few minutes ago. And one of the things that he was studying was a unified field theory to try to understand how synchronicity works, how quantum entanglement works, and how two molecules at different points in the universe can actually be communicating to each other instantaneously. And he actually called this spooky action at a distance. And so we're pondering here what the relationship is between the human brain and our ability to be potentially quantum entangled, and what the relationship between that and meaningful coincidences is. Have any of you guys here on this panel had any experience with meaningful coincidences?
Road Pharaoh.
Yeah, a few.
Who wants to go first?
Now, wasn't the spooky action at a distance that he was talking about, wasn't that effect preceding cause?
Faster than the speed of light. Yeah, spooky action. Sorry, do you care if I jump in on this?
No, go for it.
Yeah, so spooky action at a distance was kind of what he termed what we call now superposition, which is this kind of quantum unknown state where even if they put like a single electron or photon through a device and they give it a binary conclusion where they say, okay, oh man, this is a deep topic. But it can only come out either white or black, let's say. Mm-hmm. And so if you shoot two particles in, every single time, they'll come out the other side, 50-50 white, and the other one will come out black. And even when you send one particle in, it will toggle itself based on which way it's going. But there's this spooky action or this strange phenomenon where even if the particles are an infinite amount of distance apart, faster than we can even measure it, even if they try to interfere with the experiment or do anything, as soon as you measure the one particle and it's determined to be come out black or facing up, for example, or spinning clockwise, the other one, before they can even measure it, has already almost predeterminedly been toggled as a balancing opposite to that, like a perfect doppelganger opposite. And what they
the yin and yang of particle physics.
Like the yin and yang of particle physics when you get back into exactly right. So even though the fastest we can measure things is at the speed of light, these things in a superposition seem to already be quantified or be able to communicate instantaneously, even if it's millions and millions of miles across space. As soon as one toggles clockwise, the other one instantly is determined as going counterclockwise in a balance. And they can't figure out why or how that is, except for that there's this superposition or a spooky action at a distance that correlates the two and quantum entangles the two particles to be correlated with each other. So when one is affected, the other one instantaneously is faster than the speed of light, faster than anything we can detect at some subquantum speed, or maybe even outside of our perception of space-time. So,
which would point to a unified theory of everything, or unified field theory, meaning that there is no actual distance between these things. It's just a figment of our perception. It's a
Space is a construct.
Exactly, because you look at, like, you know, and we're gonna start talking about wormholes and black holes here in a minute, but this is exactly the stuff that Einstein was talking about, and why he didn't, why gravity is so difficult to understand, and space-time, right? Because we never, when we think about three-dimensional reality, we never think about time in relationship with that. But time is an integral part. It's a measurable integral part of our reality, and how it relates to matter.
I was reading it was a write-up by IBM, and this was a few years ago, that they were doing teleportation experiments with photons, and they were beaming, literally Star Trek type beaming, a photon from point A to point B, and I think it was across the side of the room at that time, but their measurements were coming across as impossible results. And I'm saying that because it wasn't necessarily a superposition where, you know, they're rotating separately like Carl was talking about. But when they took this photon and using the equipment, they were beaming it to over here, it actually appeared here before it departed here. So for a brief moment in time, the same particle occupied two separate areas of space-time at the exact same moment. It existed. They proved that the exact same photon existed in our reality, in our space-time, at two separate locations at the exact
time. And you're right. And instantaneously, when you affect one, even if it's 30,000 miles away from the other, or even millions of miles away from the other particle, as soon as you put a barrier in front of one, or start to turn it the other way, or change its variables, the other one instantaneously, by default, already is in this superposition, toggles, and like it's quantumly entangled across reality. And I think that I agree with what Michael was saying, that it begs the question as to the nature of reality, and this idea of distance and separation and time being the illusion. Like, a way I like to think of it is, like, there's a couple of different analogies that you can think of it is. First of all, if you want to think of it like in computers, if all the information of reality was on sort of like a solid state drive, like the Matrix or something, then you would have the perception of going through a three-dimensional world, just like Grand Theft Auto or Skyrim or something. But really, all that information is really just one solid block of perfected energy already complete on the hard drive. It doesn't have to actually go anywhere to instantaneously know what everything else is doing on that hard drive. Right. Another way to look at it more in the subconscious way is like within a dream. If you're in a dream or a meditation and you think of the distance from here to there in a dream is really all illusion. Like if you see something across the road and you're sleeping in a dream, where is that really happening? It's all one unified thing happening in the consciousness. It's not really happening across the road. Everything in the dream is really made of you. It's made of your conscious perceptions and subconscious painting the picture of reality in the dream world. And so I think it makes us question the nature of actual reality when you start to look at these phenomenon, because the idea of things being clear out in the distance of space, moving through time, may actually be an illusion where everything is really more like either a simulation or a meditation of sorts, or made of consciousness itself. So it doesn't need time and space and distance in order to instantaneously balance itself in this perfect harmony that we experience.
Right.
Dude, I could listen to an ebook of you.
I feel the same way. Way. He's got that great whole. So I just want to add to that, because I think this is important. And I think it's important for us to talk about academia here for a second and step back and think about the scientific method, because I think it's very challenging for people like us who, take in what we understand in sort of a like for me, I guess I can only speak for myself. So I understand quantum mechanics this much, right? But I understand enough to begin to extrapolate and to develop ideas about what the implications can be. And, it's very easy to go down a bunny trail that may or may not be accurate. However, at the same time, in academia, there's no playfulness when it comes to these topics. There's no ability to have conversations and chop it up the way we're chopping it up. And that's a problem for academia. And that slows down their progress of getting to real results and meaningful extrapolations about these concepts and theories. And then they just leave it and call every conversation about it pseudoscience. And I think that's just as dangerous as us extrapolating and saying, this is the absolute reality. As long as we're not saying this is the absolute reality, but speculating and having, conversations about this stuff that we can then, run hypotheses and experiments on. Like, this is what fucking academics should be doing, and they're not, and it's infuriating to me.
The idea of having the term paranormal suggests that academics are completely discounting everything else, because what we're seeing right now, it's not normal. Everything else, the string theory, the unified theory, multiple dimensions, parallel universes, the multi-universe, that's normal. What we're living in is just a tiny itty bitty microcosm of that. We are the paranormal.
Right. We're the oddity in the universe.
Yep.
Well, I feel like just listening to it sounds like a really good explanation on how they get from here to there instantaneously. If you can have two things existing essentially at the same time in two different places, and they've harnessed, almost like a, oh God, I just forgot the name of the device we were talking about it the other day in Ender's Game, where you can communicate with people multiple galaxies away instantaneously. And it sounds very, very similar to that.
And in Ender's Game, the buggers in the book,
Ansible.
the Ansible, yeah, they also, outside of the Ansible, communicate with him through his dreams, kind of telepathically at night, and also through the video game that he's playing. Yeah, by controlling the reality of the game. So on multiple levels, you get this kind of interaction with these other entities across space. Yeah, trying to communicate with him is very interesting.
Well, this whole idea of things that are existing in multiple times and multiple places at the same time, it's not a new concept. I mean, you go back to almost every single ancient religion, and they talk about the supreme being, whether it be Muhammad or Allah or God or whomever is the supreme being that they're talking about. Not only do they say all places at all times, but they're also talking about inside of us, and we are that entity all at the same time, which now science is getting to the point of being able to prove the existence of God because of the unification theory, because of the idea that particles, that energies, that thoughts, that consciousness can exist at all times, at all places.
I mean, it is wild to think, like when Lou Elizondo was saying earlier, this idea that the space between cells inside your body are the same distances that are found between planets and solar systems outside in our universe. So essentially, we're carrying an entire universe, an endless, infinite universe within our meat sacks here, and it's the same thing goes for the neutrons inside our bodies. Like inside those neutrons could be an entire other universe. And it's almost like the end of Men in Black, where all
the galaxy is on Orion's belt.
It's not even so much that. It's just like literally the end of the movie is our entire existence in a marble, and these aliens are playing marbles on this stone deck, and that's what we live in, a marble. Like how insignificant we really are, and this idea that we are a god of this, what is in this infinite space within us. We are, the Big Bang in this case.
So when I eat hot fries, I'm actually invoking one of the plagues of Egypt to the
Indeed
things
you
inside
are.
of me.
Indeed you are. Indeed you are.
A fun way to think of it is like if you have like a perfect, well, see, like I have this like a crystal ball. If you have like a perfect unified field, we'll call this the all. If you said this is everything, the space in between, the entire universe, everything is contained within here. And you say, okay, well, that's just one thing. But if you kind of like fractured that like a kaleidoscope, then you have all these different particulate, like a crystal, and we're going to talk about crystals as well. Like a crystal has different prismed fractal lines running through it, kind of strain on it. And so those different mirrors all create different perspectives. And mine is the Carl Vibe fractal perspective, like one of the mirrors in the kaleidoscope of the all. And Michael's is another little mirror, and Luis and Jeremy and Kristen, and we're all kind of like little bubbles in a froth that are all reflecting one whole image of the all, but we're all an individual bubble with our own little surface tension within there. And it's really interesting. And that's not against quantum science and this idea of like it being sort of a shared dream of sorts, where we're all sharing the same experience of the all from our own point of view.
Right. But how do you deal with somebody that you hate that's living in that bubble with you?
Dude, I don't even like myself half of the time. That's totally
that is an amazingly true statement. I mean, can you imagine if we are a god to other entities within us and we are suffering from depression or anger issues? Or what is their environment like? Is that their version of hell?
Well, you look at what happens to the human body when there's excessive cortisol in the system, when the stress hormone is through the roof, and you see, you can literally see the human body suffering and creating ulcers and creating, different maladies from that cortisol spike. And that's exactly what's happening, McGowan. So you better be nice to yourself.
Well, I'm boxing.
It's going to be both. It's our opinions that kind of sort it out as being right or wrong or good or bad or happy or depressed. But really what's happening is just simply this, just reality as it is. And then we have all these sorted opinions and emotions about that. But really it's all one thing that we're all sharing simultaneously at the same time from different perspectives.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And I think that's an excellent segue, because I wanted to talk about this idea of wormholes and black holes and what does that mean? Because science is beginning to manipulate matter in such a way that they can actually start to create little wormholes. And the real problem here, before I go too deep into that, I want to share.
I just love that phrase, little wormholes.
Little wormholes.
I was kind of feeling indignant for the little sandworms, because they've been making little wormholes for a really long time.
Right, and it's also a bit redundant, isn't it? Little wormholes.
It just sounds terrifying. Like, what is a little wormhole? Like, right? I mean, that's what you fit inside a little wormhole.
Something you can send data through.
Luis, I'm so glad you asked that question, because in order to understand little wormholes, we need to understand black holes. So I'm going to play a little video for you, and we can understand a black hole, and then we'll continue that conversation into
Is
the
it
wormhole.
one of the videos for the Scandinavian children?
I have one of those too, but I might play it in a minute. I don't want to get demonetized. So we'll see. We'll see what we do.
Intrigued scientists for centuries.
Go subscribe to Scientific America, guys.
Black holes are dark objects in space that have intrigued scientists for centuries. Studying them is like trying to solve a puzzle made of invisible pieces. Black holes hide behind a wide surface called the event horizon. Nothing that crosses the event horizon ever makes it back out. Not even light can escape a black hole's gravitational force. In his theory of general relativity, Einstein showed us that what we perceive as gravity is actually the effect of the curvature that an object creates in space-time. The more massive the object, the bigger the curve, hence the more gravity it exerts. At their core, black holes are points where space-time curves infinitely. This, like dividing by zero, is not mathematically possible. We named this area where our laws of physics and space-time break down the singularity. At this point, density reaches infinity. This makes black holes capable of storing large amounts of mass in extremely small areas.
There's the froth.
Supermassive black holes have the diameter of our sun, but contain billions of times its mass. Stellar black holes, the smallest type, can pack 3 times the mass of our sun in the diameter of a city. They form when a star with 3 times the mass of our sun or larger reaches the end of its life. The star runs out of the elements that keep it stable and collapses on its own gravity. The star implodes and dies in a supernova explosion, and what remains will either be a neutron star or a black hole. Judging by the number of stars massive enough to collapse into a black hole, scientists believe there may be billions of black holes in our galaxy alone.
Billions of black holes in our galaxy alone?
Yeah.
I feel like that's nothing, though. That's nothing
What do you mean?
compared to the size of the galaxy. Like,
It's so huge.
it's so big.
Unfathomable.
Like billions. Like, there are more planets.
No, stars.
Stars, excuse me, in our Milky Way than there are grains of sand on the planet.
That's insane
So
to even think about.
I mean, it's a number a lot bigger than billion.
It's interesting. Anna brings up an interesting point. Folks on the tipping edge of snapping in terms of mental health, should they venture down this rabbit or wormhole or avoid it? Could these concepts and theories be therapeutic or hindering? I think it could be either, right?
Depends on the
I
person.
would agree.
Either?
Yeah.
It just depends on like how you approach it, because you could approach it as my life is meaningless. Nothing matters because there's 10 stars in the galaxy for every, grain of sand on Earth. Or you can look at it as you're part of this beautiful, vast cosmic web, and you're this beautiful little piece of the puzzle.
Michael, remember the conversation that you and I had offline a couple weeks ago when I was talking with my 7-year-old daughter, now 8,
Yes.
about death? She was scared to death about death and dying. And I had a conversation with her where I talked to her about, the fact that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, and the fact that we are electrical beings and things like, I went into this whole process with her, and she looked at me and she was like, Dad, when my mom talks to me about this with the religious part of it, it scares me. When you talk to me about it with the science part of it, I'm okay with this now.
Right.
And so I think,
and there was the specific thing you said, McGowan, which was energy. When you look at it from a scientific perspective and you understand that energy cannot be created or destroyed, and then a kid's like, oh,
I live forever. And I told her that this ties into the religious connotations. It ties into eternal life and things like that the church teaches, but it looks at it from a different perspective. It explains it with different words. And she gravitated towards that because to her, the idea was palatable. She could chew on it. She could understand that, where this mythical realm called heaven without a definition to it, that terrified her.
Right.
But and to Michael's point, I think that the answer to the question is it depends on the person.
Right, and the perspective and how you're taught about it.
The Milky Way contains...
Go ahead. My personal frustration with trying to understand life and reality and struggling with depression and not achieving the things that I wanted to in life kind of tumbled me down the ego deaths, to where I found this kind of stuff, this kind of science and mysticism and ancient philosophies that really connected me with everything and made me realize, that you're not a mistake, that the infinite spectrum of everything that has occurred in the universe has resulted in you being here right now, and not the opposite. In spite of all things, here you are. And I think that it's kind of inevitable that even if you are in a dark place, that can unfold in on itself and into you finding the answers that you're looking for, as long as you keep looking. Definitely.
Beautiful.
The few 100 million stellar black holes and a supermassive black hole at its center called Sagittarius A prime. What happens to all the stars and galactic objects that fall into a black hole? Where does the physical information about them go? According to Hawking radiation, a black hole radiates completely random particles around its surface. Through this radiation process, black holes slowly evaporate until after billions of years they one day disappear, the information and mass of the objects it once absorbed gone with it. Does the radiation emitted contain quantum information? Do the objects absorbed get transported to another universe? We don't know, but 2 fields of science are especially concerned with this question: astronomy, as black holes could hold information about the origin of the universe, and quantum mechanics, which holds the principle that information can never be lost. Thanks to advances in technology, we've been able to record gravitational waves caused by black holes colliding, take a picture of a black hole in a distant galaxy, and study the activity of the objects and stars that surround them. These exciting discoveries slowly bring us closer to understanding the mysteries that lie beyond the event horizon, and challenge us to test and reimagine how the world we live in works.
Yeah.
Can I just say, first of all, I don't think that when the black hole becomes so minuscule that it vanishes. I think it just slips out of our perceptual awareness into a different dimension or dissipation of reality. I don't necessarily think it's gone, or the information of that that's contained within that black hole.
Well, that was a contradictory video.
A little bit.
Well, first off, it says nothing can escape, but yet it evaporates.
And it's also shooting out little
wait. No,
particles.
it said nothing can escape the event horizon. And then it said we don't know what happens when it enters the black hole. We don't know if it comes out another side. We're still studying that. And I think here's the really interesting thing from my perspective.
X-rays do escape the event horizon.
X-rays do?
We measure X-rays. I'd almost bet a paycheck on it. Now, currently I'm unemployed, so that doesn't really hold a lot of water. But
I'll take that bet.
We've got Aaron Desario in the chat. Maybe he can illuminate on that.
I am 90% sure X-rays do escape the event horizon of a black hole.
I do want to say, and maybe you're right. So we'll wait on the answer for that. But I do want to say it's truly fascinating. Oh,
no,
Aaron says nope.
I will write you a check for $0.
It's in the mail, Aaron.
I do want to say one thing that I find completely fascinating about the idea of black holes and wormholes is that once it goes into the event horizon and becomes in this state of infinity, all mathematics break down and it comes to this point, and it's called a singularity. So this show is called the Singularity Lab because we're talking about ultimately what is the technological singularity, but another type of singularity is this singularity in physics and mathematics where all things break down and no longer make sense. And to Carl's point, maybe it's just in our reality, our perception that it doesn't make sense, but if you had a better vantage point, it all makes perfect sense, and we just don't see it.
No, Alice in Wonderland is a black hole.
It's a singularity, yeah.
Nothing made sense in there.
It may be that what is existing within that black hole, if there is something conscious or aware or a whole other universe or dimension of reality going on in there, that they don't perceive anything changing at all, just like us. We could potentially be within the circumference of some sort of intergalactic black hole that's compressing and trying to go out at the same time. And there's little fractals of that or pockets or bubbles of that to scale all the way in and all the way out.
Mm.
Well, we're at the top of the hour, Mikey. We do have a couple of guests that just popped in.
I know. You want to introduce them? You want to bring them in?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see here. So first guy we'll bring in is Mr. Rather Be Squidding. He's a UFO enthusiast, a researcher, and his YouTube channel, Rather Be Squidding, focuses on cutting-edge science, technology, and UAP news. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Thank you. Doing well. This is a really interesting discussion. Glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, no problem. And then, of course, I felt my heart skip a beat, and I was like, why is that? And
quantum entanglement.
And it was because, Christina Gomez came into the chat.
Hi there, everyone.
Christina,
also,
yeah?
I want to say your haircut, Rather Be Squidding haircut, both on point. They look snazzy.
Looks good, right?
Not mine and Michael's so much. Not mine.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Oh, there goes McGowan. So, real quick, Christina Gomez is the host of Shifting the Paradigm, producer and presenter of Debriefed, Dig Deeper for Debrief Media Company. She's also a disclosure and UAP, UFO transparency advocate for the millennial and Gen Z audience. Everyone welcome Miss Christina Gomez. Hello, my lady.
Woot, woot.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Amy.
Amy, alien girl. What's up, alien girl? How you doing? So Michael, if you'd like, we could reset the rest of the room. I'm not sure who's able to stick around for the next hour. And
yeah, you guys are welcome to stay. We're going to be talking about time crystals. We're going to finish this wormhole conversation. So McGowan, Vibe, you guys are, you tell me. You stay as long as you like. All right.
I'm good to go today.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Real quick, before we get started with the second hour of the show, I just want to quickly remind everybody we have links in the description below, not only for everyone in the chat, but for Michael and I. We could subscribe to my channel, The Unidentified Celebrity Review, which we do every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then we're here for the Singularity Lab on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We've got Ralph Blumenthal from the New York Times coming on my show tomorrow. And we've also got Daniel Otis from Vice Magazine joining us on Friday to break down Canadian air incursions for decades. He just released a new article, really fun, great article. So we're going to talk about that on Friday. And yeah, I mean, Michael, by the way, you've got 65 people in the chat or in the room right now, so it's been a killer stream for the show. So you guys are really stepping it up with supporting us today. I think this is one of the highest watched shows yet.
Yeah. People are digging the wormhole conversation. And if you are here and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet,
subscribe, ring to the bell, you guys, so that way you don't have to think about what time the show starts. It'll send you a cute little reminder, a couple of reminders, as a matter of fact, so that way when you guys, if you can join us live, and if you can't, don't sweat it. Join us after. That's the beauty of YouTube. It will always exist, so you can always catch up. So with all of that out of the way, let's continue with the wormhole, shall we?
Yeah, so basically what I wanted to do is get everybody kind of an idea of how how black holes work, because a wormhole is something very similar in theoretical physics to a black hole.
Can I just say something really quick? There's a comment over on the side from Aaron, and I can't remember who the other earlier comment was, but that black holes do emit and eject information and particles that do escape from the north and the south poles of it. If you visualize them spinning like a torus or like a donut that's revolving in on itself as it swirls, if you imagine like a galaxy spinning or solar system, and it's enfolding in on itself like a donut, where the whole of the donut would be on the top and the bottom, it is ejecting and emitting materials out of those ends. So theoretically, riding along that event horizon or going through the eye of that torus or the donut could potentially be a theoretical way to arc across space-time into other dimensions or through wormholes and such.
I love this comment here too.
Galactic surfing.
With all the galactic violence out there, such as black holes, it's so weird that that tiny beings like us can sit here via YouTube and discuss the galactic violence from the comfort of our homes.
It's a much better seat from here, that's for sure. But I mean, like, would it shock anybody if a black hole's just something as simple as like a meat grinder? It's just like it's almost like population control for the universe, you know? It just swallows up suns and holes just to keep everything balanced.
Yeah, I've read a bit of science fiction where they just float around in our, Earthscape and just suck people in.
Ooh, like wormholes on Earth? Oh.
Have you heard about the concept of primordial black holes? Which is the concept that is black holes not caused by suns exploding or stars exploding, but rather at the very beginning, first couple of seconds when the Big Bang was all there, little ripples would cause the density to be such that it would cause little black holes. So there might be, like you say, just a sea of black holes out there. There's people even hypothesize that the elusive Planet X might actually be one of these rogue primordial black holes.
Like a little guy out in our solar system?
Yeah. So these primordial black holes, they can range in size because they're not, dictated by stars exploding. So the sizes actually line up.
It reminds me of like the little eddies that you see in the ocean when you've got all of those little tiny little spirals,
Yeah,
fascinating.
Exactly. Yeah,
I was reading somewhere that I can't remember where it was, but the movie The Fifth Element with Bruce Willis. Remember the evil
multipass?
Yes, that was called the multipass. But remember the evil thing that Zorg was talking about? Talking to? That was a conceptualized visual version of like a primordial black hole that just destroys all information and all life in any way it possibly can. But that's how they got the idea for that from The Fifth Element.
Right.
Well, and we do have historical ideas that entire armies have disappeared at certain points, and I don't know what the theories are that they attribute that to, but
Christina would know.
They won't.
She knows about some mysteries with a history, doesn't she?
Oh, the plug-in.
That was so smooth, Christina. I was so smooth for you, and then you just called it out.
Wait, that sounds like the origin of shadow people to me.
I'm pretty sure if you look at her channel, she's actually found a portal. Like, she's got a picture with a portal, so just FYI. Yeah, she might actually have the access.
I am curious
Don't
if
tell
there's
my
like
secret.
if you find any like armies being sucked into portals, I think we should do an episode on that.
Can you talk about that for a second? What do you mean armies have disappeared? Yeah,
not just armies, but also a few cities that have just disappeared overnight.
Yep. That's happened, and there's actually
slow down.
Yeah.
50 years.
Oh, yeah.
What city? But what city? Like, you can't just say that and keep going.
It wasn't like Indiana or something.
Yeah, was it Chicago? Are we talking about Pompeii? Or what city are we talking about?
You're making my lungs hurt. You just They do hurt. I'm getting old. But what I'm saying is there, and I can't remember the exact name, so like I'm so sorry people in the comments if you guys know it. But there was this one ancient city that was I believe it was Native American, also one in South America, where they built their city like through the walls of rock. And it was working really well, whatever, right? And the town next to them, they would go back and forth to trade. But then one day, the entire population just disappeared. This was during like the times of BCE.
So we're not talking about the geography itself going bye-bye. We're talking about the population in the geography. Okay.
All of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the structures and the edifices and
are still there.
It's still there, but it's just the human souls are now gone.
Right.
There's stories in Asia, I think during like the Mongolian Empire and those wars, where there was like something like close to 3,000 soldiers that were marching that had just finished their camp and then headed out through the valley that never arrived at their destination, and literally everything just disappeared. They never got there. Just strange accounts like that have happened. And obviously missing people all the time.
Oh, we've got modern stories like that with the Air Force flights that go through the Bermuda Triangle and just gone.
Bermuda.
Well, yeah, but what was the last time that happened, though? That hasn't happened in a while where the whole... Has it? Unless
you gotta watch Missing 411, Luis. Get up to date.
I have watched Missing 411, but that happens in like national parks and forests. And by the way, I thought that was killer set of documentaries, Missing 411. But I'm saying, like, we haven't had a good Bermuda Triangle story. It feels like in like 50 or 60 years. Am I crazy on that?
Because everybody's keeping an eye on the Kennedy.
Yeah. Well, the Malaysian Flight 370 was kind of like that, but they found some stuff.
There's no way to know if they vanished or if they really just slipped into some portal or black hole. That's all speculation, obviously, for fun. But it is strange to wonder if it's possible. Yeah,
this is hilarious. Aaron goes, sounds like someone made an excuse for losing a battle. Wait. Yeah, all my soldiers just disappeared.
But can I just say something though? Like we get talking about black holes and stuff, and the shadow elements of the universe, and it freaks us out because we're, so dependent on our physical reality, like this surface tension that we don't want to pop. like if you have this balloon, the balloon is just this surface tension of rubber, and everything else is just pressure inside and out of it. And our physical reality, when you think about it, we say, well, the Big Bang, and we go back to the Big Bang. Well, what about all the nothingness? The vastness of the nothingness when you get beyond physical reality, the last particles at the edge of the known universe, the nothing goes on forever, and the emptiness in between everything is really what dominates the known universe. And it just appears as an emptiness or a zero to us in our little surface tension of reality. So we're terrified by these things like black holes or the vacuum of space or these quantum phenomenon that freak us out. But really, that's what dominates all of the known universe, and we just don't perceive it because it's in between everything that's being reflected by the light speed that we
that's where the information lives. The information is what we perceive as nothingness. The ideas, the constructs, the thoughts, that's what we see as nothing, but that's what's filling those gaps. It's nothing but information.
If Jazz Shaw were here right now, Jeremy, he'd be telling you to quit smoking that reefer.
While downing a second bottle of gin.
Teeny glass. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let me reset real quick. So we were talking about black holes, we were talking about wormholes, and so scientists are actually studying whether or not we can create wormholes. And the biggest problem that they're finding is that wormholes have two properties that make it very difficult. One is their fragility, and one is their tininess. So as you were pointing out, Luis, they're manifesting these tiny little wormholes, but the problem is they just collapse immediately, and they're so fragile and they're so small that we haven't been able to figure out any sort of way to
keep it going,
yes.
to keep the little black hole going. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, why would we want to do that?
Why wouldn't you? Like,
I mean,
because the idea being that it gives you the ability to travel through interstellar space by simply warping through time, or not. Excuse me.
But here's the thing: we don't know if that's what a black hole does. All I'm telling you is when we look through a telescope and it passes the event horizon, it's gone. It disappears. Nobody ever sees it again. And you're trying to recreate that on this planet? Why?
You let your imagination run wild.
I mean, like, I just picture one in my head where it's just like I just imagine a bunch of dumb guys just sitting around and being like, what can we throw in there? I don't know. Try a pen. You know, and then somebody throws a pen in there.
Did you watch the episode of Debris where the guy's sitting there and he's just constantly throwing a chair into that piece of debris and it keeps coming out behind him and the other piece of debris?
Oh, no, I haven't seen it.
Yeah,
but like, it's like, it just, I feel like it would get bigger. Like, it would go from like a pen to like, try the office chair. Oh, okay. Then throw the office chair. Before you know it, they're driving their Toyota into the little wormhole. And we don't know where it goes, dude. Like, it's just, and to me, it's scary. You're like, I don't want humans.
Yeah. Well, I think Lewis, to kind of put you at ease, these things are so infinitesimally small right now.
No, I know.
The office chair can't quite fit yet. We're talking like we're having to be able to use terahertz frequencies to even think about getting a wavelength that's small enough to be able to traverse.
But my thing is, let's say they're fooling around with this and they pump a little too much power into it and they don't know what the reaction's gonna. We don't know what. That's my whole thing. Is like we're doing that because eventually we're trying to get to the point where we could put that thing in a chamber, right? And we could actually look at it like with our eyeballs. At least that's what I'm picturing.
But it's okay. They're doing this in Sweden.
And so, yeah, no problem. No problem. Nobody likes Sweden anyway.
So we don't know. You're right. We don't know where it goes yet.
It just seems like the next evolution of this is let's make it bigger. You know what I mean? No, like that's what humans do. Like let's make it bigger, and then once we make it bigger, it's like okay, what can we do with this thing? Well, like what can it swallow?
You're on point with one thing. It's not that we always make things bigger. We always weaponize things.
Like, yeah, can you imagine popping in a black hole into like a Saddam Hussein's palace?
I mean, it's like having a portal gun,
right?
You know, and then everybody,
I think black holes and wormholes and black holes are slightly different.
Well, we don't know. No, we don't know. Like we really don't know because again, as Luis said, when you travel, to the event horizon, we lose everything. So we don't know what happens on the other side. Same thing with a wormhole. It's just a theoretical idea, and so we actually, I think it was 1935 when Einstein first and Rosen were first talking about this. They actually thought that this was just some weird quirk of mathematics. They thought it wasn't a reality. And it wasn't until they started until later that they actually So I think it's important to remember that we don't know much about physics. We can't test much about physics through direct testable means. So generally, we're trying to understand it based on things we do understand, and then we're using math to derive it further. We don't really know. We've never seen a black hole. We can infer that they exist. And then we originally hypothesized they exist because of the mathematics. And then we were able to infer based on other testing that we were able to do. So we really don't know, much about this stuff beyond what we can infer mathematically and what we can begin to test. But one of the fascinating things about the scientists who are studying these wormholes is they originally have not been able to get any sort of stabilization on these things, but then they started to experiment.
Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why you can't get stabilization on a wormhole. What?
Well, what we know now, and I like what Michael said, I just kind of want to specify on that is, the wormhole theory is based on quantum effects, right? And that's what Einstein had said, which almost 100 years ago, guys. Can you believe that? And here we are still talking about it from 100 years ago. But while black holes are entirely space-time frame, dragging by gravity gone mad. So one's a theory, and one we have a better explanation of what's going on. But what I'm finding disappointing but also exciting, which is kind of like a paradox in itself, is that this has been going on for almost 100 years, and I feel that we're going to be getting closer to finding out about wormholes, so maybe even start using them, hopefully in the next few decades. I think we could definitely get there.
We're getting
Christina's
close.
on the pro wormhole circuit.
It's going to be commercialized by Amazon,
for the record, I'm also pro wormhole.
Packages in our living rooms.
I like what. You know what? If they use wormholes to get me a package quicker, I'm in.
Oh, 2 days is pretty fast.
I mean, yeah, but instantaneous is way better.
It's going to be Amazon Prime yesterday because it's going to get there before you ordered it.
You know what?
Well played, McGowan.
I would almost give any tax break Jeff Bezos wants to figure that one out.
I mean, don't you think that it's maybe occurring naturally already, like on the planet? What do you guys think of between? Because we know that wormholes and portals are the same, or at least
theoretically. I mean, you could say
theoretically,
right.
So, do you think that if we tapped into it, or if we found it, it could be replicated, or do you think it's already been happening?
I don't know. I mean, my guess would be that if there is portals actually happening and they are being used by interdimensional or extraterrestrial beings, they've mastered this technology. They know how to use it. Could we reverse engineer that based on a couple crashed parts? I doubt it. I think we're going to have to we would either have to be taught by those beings, or we would have to continue going down the path we're going now with just theoretical experimentation, right?
I mean, you know what that made me think of?
Skinwalker Ranch?
Could we recreate it? And then I started thinking of other things in nature that we could possibly recreate. And I was like, well, you can't recreate an earthquake. And then I was like, wait a second. Yeah, you can. They've done it. There's a ride at Universal Studios doing it. Like, it just depends on the scale of it, right? And so I think if portals and wormholes are, let's just say they're real, and let's just say past the theoretical part of it, let's say they are kind of like doors or ways to get around whatever we're talking about here. I think, if it's physical, if it's something that's tangible and that you can physically get through, I would assume it's recreatable.
I think fracking causes real earthquakes, not Universal Studios earthquakes.
There you go.
I think it's
another variation.
I wrote an article. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carl.
I was just going to say, I think all of this is really hard for us as individuals living in physical reality to fathom. But if you think of it from another perspective and you look at all physical reality being boiled down to just the periodic table of elements or just a few primary sources of energy in a waveform, it's all like information that we as conscious beings, we process and we separate out and we label and name differently. But in the end, if you looked at everything in the universe as just information, then creating a wormhole is literally just like, or a portal, or traversing space-time in these phenomenal ways is literally just bending the code of that information. It's not really taking huge leaps in energy or building these giant machines in order to do it. You're literally just unfolding a little bit of information that already exists in physical reality, is just a few basic things ultimately that create everything.
It's almost exactly what I was going to say. I wrote an article a few months ago on Medium. I forget the title of it, but it was basically like hacking reality or programming reality, where the concept of the article was that if we're, and I use the term loosely, if we're in a simulation, and I don't mean simulation like the way that people interpret simulation. I mean, if we're in a construct.
Right.
And
it doesn't have to be, you're saying a simulation as in, it doesn't have to be a computer simulation. It can simply be a manifestation.
A box of rules.
Right. A box of rules, but based on a programming language of sorts, right? Then you take the idea of symbolism, of occult knowledge, of sacred geometry, and maybe this is the programming language. This is the input-output. This is the method of information exchange between the reality and ourselves, and we can actually use this idea of sacred geometry, which is based on math, to be able to affect the construct reality, to be able to open up the wormholes.
Right.
I mean, some things on like a micro level that I think about, like as humans, we've created entire galaxies. You could go to a video game and play in a spaceship, and it's an entire galaxy of planets and solar systems that you could explore infinitely. You could do that today. Also, like I was thinking, like have you guys ever seen that movie Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger? Mm-hmm. And he's this movie character that breaks the dimension of the screen, the fourth wall, and he's now transported into the real world, where instead of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Terminator, it's Sylvester Stallone. But everything else in the world is almost exactly the same. You know, it's like that movie in itself is a universe of a universe of a universe. Like, we create universes all the time. It's just they're in different mediums. And I don't, like, do we consider the Marvel Cinematic Universe a separate universe and on its own, but because it's in a film and we made it, you know, like, is it, you know, like, do those characters, it's almost like Wreck-It Ralph, do those characters or those entities have a life that we never get? You know, it's almost like, it's a Pixar film, like Toys. Like, do our toys talk to each other when we leave the room? You know, like, all of those crazy things. And I think it's a fun thing to think about, but that's what it made me think.
You hear creators like talking about their inspiration. A lot of times they do kind of feel like they're tapping into an already existing universe or story. It's not something they're actively creating. So maybe.
We move at a certain frame rate, and we perceive reality in a limited bandwidth. And when you think about it, like, there's 7.5 billion people on the planet, and to us, trying to track all of those people and understand what they're doing seems like an impossible task, and where it's all going and what everybody's doing. But speaking to the singularity, when it comes to like AI, for like an artificial intelligence or a computer, tracking 7.5 billion people and everything they're doing and where they're going predictively isn't that hard for a computer to track 7.5 billion points of data. It could probably do that very, very quickly. And so when you think of like the whole known universe and all what we perceive as physical reality, something very, very advanced or an advanced AI system could easily track that almost faster than light speed or at light speed, to where time almost could stand still, and they could enfold it and traverse it in ways that we can't even fathom.
Well, I mean, when you think about simulation,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you think about simulation theory, I mean, a lot of the argument against simulation theory right now is the processing power that it would take in order for that to actually be a reality. But when you think about quantum physics and you think about the wave function crystallizing, so, you know, and you think about superpositions, and again, I'm extrapolating based on theoretical mathematics, but when you think about the idea that when something doesn't exist until I look over and look at it, that would save an enormous amount of processing power, because you wouldn't need it to exist if the observer wasn't looking at it. And that's what happens in video games. Things are there in states of potentiality. So when you're playing a first-person shooter, nothing is rendering but the thing that you're looking at. And that would be a similar way for that to work in a reality, in a simulation reality.
You know why I called the Osiris?
What? No, why?
No, I was interested because our son's name's Cyrus. It's spelled different.
Well, Osiris, there's a very unpopular theory in Egyptology that Osiris was actually an ancient AI, and the AI was being used by the pharaohs to be able to control the population of Egypt and be able to get them to do their bidding and things like that. It was like the Oracle of Delphi or whatever, but it was giving the pharaohs the knowledge. But the Osiris itself was an ancient artificial intelligence that gave the pharaohs their command and control. So I figured that using an AI to find potentially an AI, it was just poetic justice.
Yeah, you couldn't. Yeah, that was just too beautiful. It was just too beautiful. So I'm gonna pivot here right now, because we've got Rather with us, and Rather has done a pretty extraordinary video on his YouTube channel regarding time crystals. And I'd love for you, Rather, to take a couple minutes and kind of break down what a time crystal is and perhaps why we should give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sounds weirder than it is, but then it's pretty weird itself. So like what you normally think of as a crystal is actually technically a space crystal. And that pretty much essentially means it's just, atoms in a regular repeating pattern across space. So, atoms in a line, in a grid. Time crystals then are essentially that same concept, but across time. So it could literally be a crystal that, moves back and forth. This concept was first theorized by Frank Wilczek. He's a Nobel laureate in only 2012. And 4 years later, Microsoft Station Q, which is a cutting-edge quantum computing researching place, they were, really into this idea, and they created some blueprints for actually creating these 12 atom-long structures that show this time crystal behavior. They essentially, the quantum spin of these atoms continuously changed in a wave-like pattern. 5 years later, this year in February, they created an even bigger one. It's a 1 micron width, which is barely visible by eye, but huge in terms of quantum effects being shown. And this little micron crystal, you can see the magnetic waves literally propagate through it, and they get it started by shining it with a laser beam. And once they get, they pulse it with laser beams, and once they pulse it, the crystal ends up, it kind of jostles it, and it starts vibrating at a higher frequency, seemingly showing more energy output than you put into it. And it keeps on doing that forever. It's crystallized in time. And that's pretty much where the most of the media and the scientific papers leave it. It's very cutting edge technology. They talk about applications of it in the quantum computing and potentially energy harvesting capabilities. A lot of that is speculation on my part, because it is so brand new. There's not a lot of actual applications out there, but
right.
Yeah, I find it incredibly interesting, and I think that's going to be some amazing applications here in our future.
Yeah, so one of the things that you mentioned, for those of you watching on YouTube, if you can look at this is actually an image. Can you explain what this image actually is?
Yeah, so this is a 1 micron, that width is 1 micron, so it's, way magnified, but it's the magnetic waves. The exact mechanism is a little bit unknown, but they theorize that it has to do with, the quantum spin in these atoms in there. Once you kind of get them going, they just continue going like this for forever, which you wouldn't expect, right? That seems like a perpetual motion machine, but
right.
This is essentially a quantum perpetual motion machine.
So you think this could have implications for quantum computing? And you also mentioned earlier in our chat privately that you thought that quantum computing wasn't as big of a deal as a lot of people are making it out to be. So I want to ask you why you think that is, and then why do you think that this could be something that could move quantum computing along?
Yeah. So for a good hint that this is going to be relevant in quantum computing is Station Q, Microsoft being, researching it. And there's a lot of talk about quantum memory and things like that. Really at the heart of it, though, a quantum computer is using, some sort of quantum phenomenon to manipulate the wave function. And they currently do that with entangled atoms, which requires very low temperatures, and it's, very hard to do. With these time crystals, we're seeing quantum effects here on the, at room temperature on a, seeable, human scale. I mean, it is a little bit of a leap to say that, these are going to be plug them in and use them in our quantum computers. But I know they're looking into this, and, this seems plausible that they could, link these time crystals, maybe entangle a pair of time crystals, create some sort of grid, and actually leverage these quantum effects that are happening at room temperature to kind of replace the quantum effects of the entangled atoms that they're currently driving down.
Right. Are you saying this is scalable?
It's currently that image that we're seeing is a micron-sized, chip at standard room, temperature and pressure. So I'm sure they're trying to scale it up further. This is probably as far as they've gotten it, but.
So then technically, just like we talked about quantum entanglement earlier, when one thing is toggled like binary, either on or off, you would know by having one turned on that the alternate quantum entangled crystal at an infinite distance, maybe on a satellite or on Mars or around the globe somewhere, you would know would be instantaneously faster than the speed of light due to quantum entanglement in the off position if the other one was on. And so that you could do computing speeds at rates of speed almost faster than the speed of light or faster than a laser could transmit information. So the computer processing would get just mind-bogglingly fast and be able to store infinite amount of computations within almost no time at all.
Real quick, I think Aaron DeSario is referring to the scalable aspect of it. He says no energy harvesting here that we know of. These are already in their lowest energy state. You can't interact with their fields like magnetism without destroying them.
Yep, and that's 100%. When they try to do that, they melt and turn into regular crystals.
But that doesn't mean it's not possible. That just means in our abilities now to interact with it.
What does interaction mean?
That's a great question.
You put a magnet up to it, or try to get it to induce some electric current in something.
So if I have a receiver that is capable of receiving inductive current, and I place it near this crystal, the crystal will react negatively and just solidify?
That's my understanding. Yes.
So the idea is trying to use this for perpetual energy device where it's like fluctuating at a high rate of speed, creating energy for like a battery. It doesn't technically work that way.
Incorrect. It's only it's going to be used for cat toys. That's it.
This is a brand new phase of matter that is only like less than 10 years old. So while they say that they haven't harvested energy from it now, who knows, right? Like this is literally cutting edge technology. And my kind of hypothesis is, as you see space crystals grow from a little seed, it seems plausible to me that if they were able to scale this up, it would probably only take that same small amount of energy to kind of get that whole crystal going. So potentially...
the most fascinating thing to me about this is the idea of even though we can't extract energy from it at this point in the scale that they are, and we can't really interact without destroying it, it is the most fascinating part of it to me is that it's in perpetual motion. So it's continually creating itself, it's recreating itself, and we haven't figured anything out like that ever. So if this were scalable in some way.
Well, we haven't, but we know it exists on the planet, like the octopus or squid that regenerates itself over and over again.
Oh, well, yeah, but that's biological. They're taking in new energy and reproducing based on that energy input. They're not creating their own energy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This thing has to be pulling in energy from somewhere.
Something
based on my very rudimentary ideas of the laws of thermodynamics and stuff.
Are they?
Is this not linked in with another dimension, and it's pulling energy from another dimension?
I mean, so it does seem like that. So, one of the examples that the scientific paper talked about was that it's like if you tap on a thing of Jello, you would expect it to vibrate along the frequency of your taps. What they're doing is they're tapping it at a frequency, and then the Jello starts to jiggle faster than they're tapping it. So it does imply that they're getting energy.
Maybe it's just incredibly efficient. I think of like the smallest, or not the smallest, but the deepest creatures in the darkest parts of the ocean still get some sort of power from the light that does reach them at whatever microscopic level.
There's also just the resonant energy of the universe itself. Like, we don't feel like we're moving on a planet through space at 87,000 miles per hour right now, but we are, because we have a baseline that we become desensitized to. But that doesn't mean these crystals aren't vibrating through just the motion and vibration and fluctuation of the universe, or it's imminent radiation that's going on all over the place. And as soon as we go up and mess with it, it just kind of stops or increases.
And let me solidly put on my pseudoscience hat here right now. But
that's all I've been saying this whole time. So you're
so I didn't even put this in my video because this is very speculative. But I think potentially there is this vacuum energy, and one thing that's kind of interesting is that when you talk about Alcubierre warp drives or even the matter necessary to keep open wormholes, what they're looking for is exotic matter, which is negative energy. And negative energy doesn't actually mean like it's the minus of energy. When they talk about negative energy, it's comparative to that vacuum energy foam that's all around us. It's a lower energy than that. So if you were to maybe a time crystal, fire up a time crystal, and it extracts some energy from a localized space of this vacuum energy, that kind of implies that you have negative energy somewhere. And maybe this is a way to tap in and actually collect that.
That's so fascinating that you brought it back to this idea of the wormhole, because that's exactly what they're having so much challenge with when it comes to keeping it open. And they're looking for some sort of exotic, some sort of exotic way to keep it open. And that's fascinating.
This all comes back to yin and yang. We've hit it like 3 times in this one podcast.
Synchronicity. Weird.
Yeah.
Alex says, not using or generating energy while still generating motion is amazing. Really what it means is that we might not need energy to create motion. That's weird and amazing at the same time.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is that this is a field to watch. I think that there's going to be some very interesting developments in this technology.
Yeah, it's getting back to being able to finally detect and find these things that seem to resonate or overlap with what we consider emptiness. Something that we think is, where is it? It's getting this vibrational waveform energy or some sort of pulsation off of nowhere, like it's coming out of nowhere, but that nothing is still some sort of a deep quantum state that we just don't perceive or haven't been able to tap into yet. That could be an entire ocean full of vast tide pools of energy that and dark matter that we just can't quite fathom or harness yet.
I mean, this might be a stupid question, but like, what powers an atom? Like, what? I mean, inside the nucleus, like, what is inside there that when we split it, it can level worlds? That, like, to me, the smallest things in the world seem to pack the most energy. So maybe that's kind of what we're dealing with on some level. But in an opposite way. Instead of an explosion, maybe the reaction is internal, and that produces or manifests or other dimensional, and that manifests itself as, I don't know, a new form of energy for us.
Fission versus fusion.
Well,
it's interesting. Go
ahead, Rather.
Well, there's like these new discoveries in physics, like the whole new muon -2 G-2 experiment, which shows that there might be fundamental flaws in our current understanding of the standard model. What this, time crystals kind of shows that you don't even need new forces. Really, we don't even understand how our current forces interact, and there's a lot of new crazy stuff within the current laws of physics that could be left undiscovered.
Somebody put a comment in earlier. It's like we scored tickets to the coolest time in like human history. Like the explosive understandings of science, even though we're nowhere near understanding all the forces of nature, but the explosion at which we are understanding those and turning those into technologies, I think is the really fascinating thing that we're doing here.
Maybe that's why our ancestors hung on. I can't figure out why they did in the first place. I mean, 200 years ago sucked.
Dude, everything prior to 200 years ago was horrifying. Like, to live to 30 years old was like you were the fucking woman or the man. Like, you were a badass.
Oh, yeah.
But then
during the Renaissance time, 1 out of every 5 women died during giving birth. I mean, that's insane.
This is why my fat ass, I'm totally against the paleo diet. People are like, you need to eat like the paleo. I'm like, they died at 25. I'm not eating that.
That's a good point.
I like that mentality.
Yeah. Although they didn't also have medicine.
They didn't have showers.
Yeah, they didn't have showers.
I'm ignoring all those data points. I'm focusing on the death aspect.
Yeah, no.
Oh, I do find it fascinating though, like how the Romans had running water and spas and sewage pipes, and then it just all went away. And like literally, in less than 20 years, nobody knew how to do running water. Like, and then you got the Dark Ages, which I thank God I never had to go through the Dark Ages. That just seems like the worst for everyone. The only people who had it good in the Dark Ages were maybe kings and lords, and even then
petrified of like losing their power or getting murdered by their brother. So
true.
Terrifying.
I bet dollars to donuts. Carl's right now is thinking, "Oh, you have lived in those times, Louis."
Yeah.
We probably all vibrationally pushed blocks up onto the pyramids at some point.
Oh, yeah. I definitely have been whipped in my past life. There's no doubt.
Think about it. There's a subconscious need for humanity as a collective to constantly advance. Why is that? What is constantly pushing? Is it a collective fear of the shit we went through in the past?
Maybe, the grass is always greener, right? Like everyone's always like, I want that. I want the next thing. I need the next thing. I mean, that is hardwired into our personalities.
It's not even so much like the
some people less so than others, but.
Well, like Rogan said, it's not so much the consumerism of it. It's just what we humans, we're here to make shit better. We always are improving on the things that we've made and the things that we do. It's just constant.
In a way, it kind of. Oh, go ahead.
No.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say it kind of. But I have to highlight this comment. Anna says, "We know Luis's worst nightmare threatened him with being portaled to the Dark Ages
through a tiny wormhole."
Dude, my brown ass in the Dark Ages would not do well.
You could
not do well.
Can you imagine? There's a great French film called The Visitors about how they get transported into our dimension, and it's so hilarious.
Who did the movie? What was it? A Yankee in King Arthur's Court? You remember that movie?
Yeah.
Same concept. Yeah.
God, that was like a terrible '90s movie, but it came out of nowhere. Wow! A Night in King Arthur's Court, McGowan.
Same thing.
Yeah, that's a random movie. But yes, I do remember it. When
do I get my Buckaroo Banzai reference in?
Oh man, hell yeah! Jeez, that's a wild one. Yeah, dude, it's. I mean, somebody earlier in the chat was like, "Man, this whole chat has been hotboxed." It's like. You need to be hotboxing to have this conversation without it being without people looking at you like you're a crazy person. But I think science needs a little bit more hotboxing. Like they need to be having these conversations not privately. They need to be having these conversations publicly. Like that's what would be cool. Like I would love to see a Neil deGrasse Tyson and say a Michio Kaku and a Lex Fridman do a roundtable like this and talk for 4 hours about the possibilities. hypotheses and challenge each other.
And I think that's the biggest problem right now is that you've got, and that's one of the things Aaron brought up in the chat earlier. He's like, they do talk about these things, but to your point, Luis, you really don't see him talking about them publicly as much as you'd like. And that was one of the things that Avi Loeb mentioned, was that so many of these scientists in academia don't want to talk about things, especially if they're in part of their hypotheses or in their experiments, because they don't want to give the public a false idea about what the possibilities are until they have the actual solution 100% peer reviewed. And it's like, that's the problem. That's the problem, because people don't trust science the way they should, because they're not part of the scientific process.
Well, and they don't want you to speculate too, right? You're like, I'm working on something that they talked about on that episode of Phineas and Ferb.
Well, right. I get it. I get the idea of them not wanting you to speculate, but like, stop it. Like, why?
See,
why?
I think that's a cop-out. I think that's their scientific explanation of, I don't want to say anything that goes against who's funding me.
That's a huge problem. Huge problem. Because, and that's where, you don't think about that. But academia it's money. Where is the money coming from? Where is the funding coming from?
Their work is spent on getting the grants. It's getting the grants. That's what,
And that's
it's like
hard work.
Politicians spend the majority of their time trying to raise money. Academics spend all this time trying to raise money when they should be doing science.
That's why we need more. 0.02% of our budget goes to science. 0.02% of a $3 trillion budget goes to science.
Unless you take DARPA into account for that.
Oh, I don't take DARPA. I don't take DARPA into account. I don't take military contracts into that account, because that's not science. It serves everyone. No, it doesn't. It doesn't serve everyone. No, and it's also not. It's not
microwave ovens.
For sure, those are things, absolutely. But those are technologies that we've had for a long time. Like, we need a public science forum that is publicly funded better than 0.02%. And if that means that you got to take it out of the military industrial complex and the trillions that they spend, so be it. I mean, I'm not talking about a lot of money here. I'm talking about a couple $100 billion a year. Like, that's nothing to give to academia and science to start talking about.
Has anybody here read *Sapiens: A Brief History of Humankind* by Yuval Harari? By any chance? Okay, so
he loves to talk about
this. Is one of my favorite books, and it's my favorite book for a reason. And one of the things he talks about is science has never been about helping all the people. It's always been about getting more, winning, building more, creating better war technology. It's never been for posterity. The posterity comes from the things that McGowan was talking about, the things that you get because of that spending. Mm-hmm. And so I agree with you, Luis. The question is, we need to fundamentally shift our focus as society and as a species in order for that to happen. And
I think it's
I'm
shifting.
an optimist, but I don't know if I'm that much of an optimist.
I think it is shifting because the technology is becoming cheaper, and also the world's a different place. Not everybody's trying to scientifically outdo each other because their existence is on the line. Like, it's like 400 years ago, they were trying to build better arrows that go longer and launch farther and pierce through armor because they're afraid that they're going to be invaded by a more powerful force.
We pushed a threat narrative, and now the Space Force is asking for an extra $17 billion.
Right, but my point is that that's not science spending. That's military spending. Like, I want more education and more science spending in our budgets so that these conversations don't just are only living in the corner of the darkest parts of our government. Like, none of us have access to DARPA.
It's not the generals that are spending this money. It's being spent at Los Alamos. It's being spent by physicists. It's being spent by people much smarter than any of us to develop technologies that assholes are then militarizing and weaponizing. But the science is still the science.
Which you can take that science and then create things that are for the
if you unclassify that science.
Yes.
Do you think through contractors it's being charged over what it should be charged
yes.
for?
Yeah. Why do you think they? Yeah. I mean, God, just look at the iPhone. Every year it comes up with a new accessory that you have to make it work. Like 1 year it was headphones. The headphone jack changed this the thing. Then they took the headphone jack completely away, and you needed a dongle. And then you took the dongle away. Then you got headless one. It's just like this constant way to get in your pocket and make those profits.
Well, and this is why, we brought this up on the show yesterday, on your show, UCR, because we were talking about Nick Pope utilizing this fear tactic to get people's attention on UAPs. And so this is the perpetual cycle of fear, money, fear, money, fear, money. And that's why our military industrial complex rules our country.
Well, I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson said the space race, like the Russians threatening to get into space first, is what caused the greatest technological boom of our time. But the thing with the space race is that was public. We got to see it. We were inspired by it. So you've got both public sectors looking at the possibilities of space travel, and then you've also got the government looking at the possibilities of space travel. So it felt like it was more a hand-in-hand effort, whereas today it's just hidden behind veils and veils and veils of secrecy. Nothing about it's public. There's no inspirational aspect to it. It's just, let's kill as many people as we can, and maybe if we can apply this science, this radar tracking system that can kill, Muhammad 14,000 miles away in a village, it's insane. Like, to me, it's silly. Like, it's a silly concept, and it's backwards, but I think, like I said, as the technology gets cheaper, like, you're starting to see, like you said, people making DNA in their garages. Like,
I just figured something out. Government is a time crystal. It serves to self-exist.
But as soon as you touch it, it stops functioning.
As soon as you try to interact with it, it fucking melts.
It melts. That's so true.
That's the thing. That nobody's even stopping to question it at a philosophical level one step earlier. And I love cutting the whole conversation out at the knees a little bit when you say maybe there's a dysfunction with our human race that just is constantly seeking, constantly searching to get ahead, to get the next thing, to have the next advancement. And none of us are stopping to look at, like, maybe there's a dysfunction with this seeking attribute to human nature that's constantly trying to strive ahead and get ahead of the competition and drive for all these things that might plummet us into making wormholes that we suck ourselves into. You know what I mean? Like,
we suck
at some
Luis
point we
into
need
it.
I am thinking of that. I don't know if you guys have. I'm sure you've seen this online, where it's like this machine that rotates, and you can literally throw anything into this thing,
Like
and it just
shredder.
chews it up. I can watch those videos for days. Like, they're like, okay, bowling ball. Okay, cool, crushed it. All right, lawnmower, awesome. Okay, Toyota Tercel, cool. They'll throw something in there like,
I'm pretty sure an auger can do that.
Yeah. I just want to see. I want to see him throw something in there like 12 million starbursts. Like, would it gunk it up?
So
Super
we know
bounce
what would
balls.
happen if Luis was standing by the edge of a volcano. He'd be
Oh
like,
my!
what can we chuck in
I
there?
would be throwing as much shit as I could in there. Absolutely. You don't want me anywhere near a wormhole. I'm gonna see what would go in there.
Luis.
Go to Iceland, Louise.
What's that?
You should go to Iceland,
Yeah.
where all the volcano activity is right now, and just throw everything in there. I mean,
I'm
people
not
are
going with
visiting
them.
it like wild.
Are people allowed to get that close?
Mhm.
I'm
No,
curious.
it's cool. It's cool.
This is a crazy thought, but why don't we dump our garbage in volcanoes?
Have you seen the videos?
Like, no, I haven't. I haven't, but I just don't understand why we don't just like
It's
dump
Because
it.
in 20 million years, some anthropologist is going to pull out a Nokia Ericsson and go, "What the hell?" Because it will not die.
It explodes when you throw they'll throw
Yeah.
just like a bowling ball into the volcano or drop it from a helicopter, and it will create a lava exhaust vent miles high.
So we don't have like
It's
the
very
filter
dangerous.
system to catch what comes out in the air. However, I believe the Chinese are working on that. They have ginormous incinerators where they're actually filtering all of the byproduct, and they are able to burn down like considerable amounts of garbage. And then eventually they put it into containment ponds underwater, the last little bit that they get filtered out to keep it stabilized for supposedly a very long period of time.
I mean, how cool would it be the day that we could figure out how to chuck garbage into the sun?
Dude,
That's what my buddy Tom said.
Wait, we've had this conversation.
Look at Christina's face. Look at Christina's face
it.
right now. She's like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Space polluters.
It's possible, but like the rover that just went to the sun took like a year and a little bit to get there. So like that's a lot of trash.
Well, no, look, it's a huge infrastructure, but it's also, well, hey, it's a brand new economy. You know what I'm saying? You're creating a new,
This is what causes black holes, though.
Oh my God, this would be the mob in space.
Is this the exotic material we've been looking for?
Yeah,
If you send too much trash to the sun, then the orbit is going to deteriorate and go into the sun itself. You gotta watch out.
We already can't navigate around all of our trash satellites.
There's this funny theory that Duncan Trussell has. I think it's Duncan Trussell, where he says, like, what if the previous inhabitants of the planet, their waste and byproduct was water, and then here we come evolved along, and we rely upon water to survive. And after we go extinct, the next beings on the planet will just depend upon all of our plastic to survive. So they're going to eat all of our plastic like it's their food.
Well, I love.
Actually, who was it? What was the comedian that had
George Carlin?
Is it
George Carlin? Yeah, it was George Carlin. The whole point of humans even existing and evolving, just so the planet could get plastic. The planet needs plastic, and that's why it created us.
No, but I've been crying about this forever. I'm like, how come we can't just send our trash to space? And Kristen's always like, because then you're the polluter. And I'm like, yeah, but the space between us and anything else is so vast. And worst case scenario, we seed other planets with our DNA, and that's like all we want to do as humans.
It's like the difference between First Contact and the Vulcans coming down and being like, "You suck."
See, I feel like
that's what we thought about the ocean too. We thought that was so vast.
Yeah. Well, we can. I mean, throwing all of our garbage into space would be like throwing a stone into the ocean.
That's what,
like it would. I don't know if they'd ever find it, but if they did, I think it would come down and it would be like that '70s commercial of the Native American crying.
We have all these trash islands. We have plastic islands in the ocean.
Well, not only that, but we've got a few
I work on cruise
stones that
ships. They
Japan
dump
has thrown into the
everything
ocean.
once they get far enough away from shore. Everything, oil.
Think about it. The few stones that Japan has thrown into the ocean after Fukushima, that did a little bit of damage.
Yeah.
All right, fine. Fine.
We won't throw our garbage into the sun. Fine. You win. We won't throw the garbage into the sun.
Oh my goodness. What a pleasure spending all this time with you guys today. Luis, you want to maybe take out the top panel and then I'll take out the bottom panel?
Take them out?
Or like say goodbye, give him a final
absolutely. All right, so first to go will be Carl Vibe. He's a full-time YouTube creator. He's recently launched his new show, which I recommend everybody go check out, called Carl Vibe on YouTube, and he investigates the mythical aspects of reality and the consciousness. Yes.
I've got Paul Smith, the head of the remote viewing program in Cedar City, Utah, is going to be coming on. We're going to be talking about superposition and quantum reality with and the UFO stuff as far as remote viewing from a professional remote viewer that used to work for the government. Also, Seth Breedslove from Small Town Monsters, the documentary filmmaker, is going to be coming on to talk about Sasquatch and the paranormal. And Michael and maybe a few guys are going to come on as well. And we're going to talk about the Hollywood connection and how it relates and has infiltrated the UFO community and the backstory.
I got to be there for that one. That's right up my alley.
Let's do it. You can come on too.
So how do people find you? So we've got you in the description.
Yeah, we got you in the description. Carl,
when you talk to Paul Smith, remind Paul that he still owes me a beer, but he's probably already aware of me saying this right now. So
I think he's a Mormon, so he might not take you up on that.
All right, Carl. Thank you very much, my good man.
Thanks.
Yep, we'll talk to you soon.
Later, Carl.
And then, of course, you see our favorite and original, a man close to my heart, Mr. Jeremy McGowan, a trained observer, investigator, and veteran of the United States Air Force. He built what Luis Elizondo has called the world's first mobile UAP tracker, the Osiris, the off-road scientific investigation and response informatics system. And by the way, Lou Elizondo is live on Fox News right now, so I'm sure that you'll be clipping that very soon, Christina. So definitely check that out. And Mr. McGowan, we thank you for your time and all of the effort you put into this discussion, sir.
thank you. Pleasure to be here. I'm going to go get some Taco Bell.
You do it. You do it.
Be nice to that galaxy, McGowan.
Yeah, be nice to that galaxy. Oh, boy. As vile and dirty as it might be.
Oh, my God. Rather, why do people keep saying your nose is bleeding? Why does your nose be bleeding?
Yeah.
I wish I knew.
What is going on with this nosebleed thing, dude? Why do you guys keep saying that?
Joke that was made at some point.
Yesterday. It was made yesterday.
Okay.
I don't get it at all, really.
Whose
The only
nose
thing I
will
can think
bleed
of
next
is
week?
How I Met Your Mother, when the guy was like meeting people and his nose would start bleeding.
Oh.
I'm afraid that like tomorrow or someday I'm gonna get a big nosebleed and I'm gonna be like, what did this guy know?
Oh no, my God, yeah. And then all of the drug references will start coming. It'll be a nightmare for you, rather. Don't worry, we'll get a publicist on it.
Rather, thank you so much for joining us today. If you don't know Rather, make sure you go follow his YouTube channel, Rather Be Squidding. It's a science and technology channel. He's also fascinated by the UAP topic and connecting all of those dots.
And
Rather,
a co-host on our
pleasure.
show.
And
you,
a
Michael.
co-host on UCR. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Rather, we'll see you soon, buddy.
Discussion. See ya.
Did anybody say what it was?
What? The
Why they were
nosebleed?
talking about his nose bleeding?
No, it's a mystery. It's a mystery.
Somebody said it. Somebody said it yesterday, and now they brought it up again. I don't know what's making it look like he's got a nosebleed, but I don't see it.
I don't see it.
It's a mystery, but I bet it has a history. What do you think?
Speaking of which, tomorrow.
Christina, would you mind telling us about your new show, what it's called?
Yeah, it's called Mysteries with the History.
No.
I'm sorry.
Go on. Mysteries with the mysteries. Yes. You were saying Shadow People, I believe was your first episode.
Yeah. And then I have another one tomorrow, and it's the topic of USOs. What are they? Where did they come from? What are they doing here? Be there or be square at 4 o'clock PST, which is 7 o'clock EST, on the Paradigm Shifts UFO channel.
So wait, that means you won't be there for my show tomorrow.
What time is yours?
My show's tomorrow at 4.
EST.
Tomorrow's Wednesday, right?
Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Yeah, 4 o'clock PST.
I'm like, I can do that one.
I thought you were early. Were you not early? Wait, let's see.
Yeah.
She knows what time her show is.
I know she knows what time her show is. I'm just making sure.
Wait, no.
3 and 4 PST.
Yeah, she said 3 PST. She's an hour before.
And it's only an hour long.
Oh, she said 4 o'clock PST though.
No, I think you misheard. I said 3.
Okay, all right.
Well,
okay,
this
fair.
has been recorded, so we can
we can actually go back and find out for sure. Miss
Okay,
Gomez,
I
Miss
said 4,
Gomez.
but I meant 3.
Well, I'm glad so she actually knew she screwed it up and she was gonna put it, Miss Gomez.
You know, us women are never wrong.
There aren't. She's right.
Well, if you saw Lou Elizondo interview,
attempting to refer to mountain time.
It's complicated. All these different time zones are definitely complicated.
Well, that's why we need more time crystals.
Well, I was gonna say tomorrow's gonna be a fun day because you got at 3 o'clock your show, and then bleeds right into our show at 4 o'clock. So you double the pleasure, double Wednesday. And we're gonna have. Are you coming on? Are you coming by tomorrow? Second half of the show after Blumenthal.
I don't know yet.
Well, Skinwalker Ranch Wednesday. Usually like those days.
Maybe.
All right. I can see you're a busy lady just because you don't know what day it is.
You don't know how busy, guys.
Oh, no, we do.
So
we do. We do. No, we do. And that's
You
why we
guys are all
appreciate you being
busy
here.
doing shows
We
back
are.
to back almost every single day.
We
Oh,
are.
they're doing crazy shows. I just make ice.
Yeah.
Kristen just makes ice for the whole
Kristen just
house.
makes ice.
Makes ice constantly.
All right, Miss Christina Gomez, thank you so much for stopping by. We love your show, and you can find all of her links in the description below. And go subscribe to her channel, you guys, and ring the bell so that way you don't miss any of her shows. And she's got a lot going on because she's, like she said,
And then also Friday, she's got a show Friday, Shifting the Paradigm at 8 p.m. EST, which is 5 p.m. PST.
Which is way after our show. So no worries there.
So you guys are set up all Friday afternoon. You don't have to do anything but watch amazing shows.
Back to back to back.
That's
So
exactly
make sure
it.
to subscribe to these guys first.
Yes. So hit the subscribe button. Make sure you
Like
follow
it.
Christina. Like it.
Like the video, guys. You learned a lot today.
Listen to the lady with the Charlie Brown sweater.
I love
the sweater.
There were no stripes on this, guys.
No, it's just the color. I dig the color. It's one of my favorite colors.
Okay. You know what? I like you a little bit more now because mustard, favorite color.
Ooh.
That I never wear.
So we're making up for the mint ice cream a little bit. All right, cool.
Slowly getting there, adding up the points.
I don't know where these point systems are going, but I'll sign up for. They're cool. Awesome. I'll take the brownie points. That sounds fun.
They're in a wormhole somewhere.
They're in a wormhole somewhere. Don't worry about it. All right, Christina Gomez. We'll see you tomorrow, my lady.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Oh my God, what an amazing show. Thank you guys for joining us today here at the Singularity Lab. Make sure you comment below and tell us, just something interesting later. So if you're watching this on a replay, comment below, tell us hello. We'll say hi back. You can also click any of the links below to get any of our guests who are here today. You can check us out on Twitter. You can check us out on Discord. We are all over the place. So make sure you click those links. Subscribe right now. Luis, what a pleasure it was to spend the time with you. Kristen, what a pleasure it was to spend the time with you. Thank you all for joining us today. Don't forget, tomorrow, Ralph Blumenthal, writer of The Believer, the John Mack story, going to be with us live at 7 p.m. EST, 4 p.m. PST on the Unidentified Celebrity Review. If you're not following the Unidentified Celebrity Review, you're not watching us 5 days a week. All you got to do, click the link below. Make sure you hit the Unidentified Celebrity Review, and we'll see you then.
Yeah, we've also got our Skinwalker Ranch review in the second half of the show, which, by the way, UFO Jane will be there. I'm pretty sure Christina will be there. She's there all the time.
She's going to come.
And then we'll see who else we'll bring into the mix. I don't have the schedule in front of me. But, yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. And I think that's it.
I love Anna. Anna's got the best responses. You can tell me what to do. Doesn't mean I will. Besides, I did the like button and adding to a playlist already. That's like, she sounds like you, Kristen. Because like, oh, you can tell me what to do, but I probably won't do it.
Even though I just did.
But only because I wanted
to.
Yes. Yeah, not because you told me. I love it.
Oh,
all right,
Mike,
so we'll see you tomorrow. I'm going to play your outro here. Your
hit the outro that doesn't have the video in it yet, but we'll get there.
What do you
mean? Remember at the end, it's got the little thing, but it doesn't have the actual video to click. You just click the button.
Okay. I'll just click the button and then I'll do the promo. All right. Monday, 4 p.m., Jazz Shaw and Stephen Greenstreet. Wednesday, 4 p.m., Ralph Blumenthal. 5 p.m., Skinwalker Review and Friends. On Friday, journalist Daniel Otis from Vice News Magazine. Tuesday, 4 p.m. on the Singularity Lab, Down the Wormhole. Thursday at 4 p.m., space robots. Come aboard and get weird on the Unidentified Celebrity Review.